Live. I should also prepare my beer and everything. We're live. We're live on YouTube. What a glorious day. What a fantastic time of year to be alive and everything. Hi everyone and welcome to Awesome Hardware. We are very glad to be joining you all today. And wanted to say thank you for being here. This is a live show that we typically stream every Tuesday evening at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Although that is those are flexible standards because we haven't been streaming every week, and we haven't always been starting at 5:30, but we're aiming for it. It's closer to 6 now. Hopefully that's okay. Groovy. Yeah, sorry we're late, YouTube. That's how it goes. What should I say here to start the show off?
Oh,
what?
Damn it. Sorry. Oh, you should say adult language warning.
Oh yeah, adult language warning. We occasionally use adult language. We also drink beer on the show. Also, the audio is probably a little sketchy because I'm in the garage. It's really hot. Air conditioner's trying to keep up, but I've got like fans on and stuff like that. I tried to move the mic a little bit closer, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Kyle, what you drinking?
Black Saddle Bourbon.
Black Saddle Bourbon.
I brought this from home, but I forgot to bring an actual drinking glass, so now I have a glass coffee mug that I'm drinking it out of. But it works the same. I
wouldn't have thought anything of it if you were just drinking out of that, but
yeah,
coffee mug works.
I've been self-consciously trying to hide the handle from you guys, so you don't think less of me.
Oh yeah, there you go. I'm drinking Prankster from North Coast, which is the same brewing company that makes Old Rasputin. This is a Belgian-style golden ale, and it is pretty tasty.
I do like the Prankster.
Added more. Yeah, I hadn't tried this one.
Prankster with a Q.
Yeah. Cheers, and thank you all for joining us today.
Cheers. Prost.
Now, we had endeavored to sort of change up the show's pacing and stuff and try to get through things quicker. And I just wanted to say from the start, I'm not trying to do that at all today. Today, I wanted to have a little bit more of a relaxed show, where we just kind of take things as they come and have a nice, easy pace. That said, we are going to talk about some tech news, and we got some stuff lined up there, and links to all those stories are down in the video description if you want to check them out. We're also going to go through some Pimp My PC submissions that you all sent over on Twitter, and we'll give you your feedback on that. If you guys happen to buy something during the show from us, from either of our stores, which are also linked in the video description on YouTube, we'll give you a shout out during the after party, which will only be on Twitch, and we are dual streaming right now, in case we didn't mention it, to twitch.tv/awesomehardware as well as my YouTube channel. I guess another aside, I had a rough week, or I don't know. There's been lots of rough patches recently, but I tweeted about it, and a bunch of people jumped in and offered a bunch of support and stuff, and I wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate that. And for everyone who has messaged me, I have a bunch of direct messages on Twitter that have come in and stuff like that I haven't even had the chance to respond to. I just wanted to say thank you, and really appreciate the support. It really does help. We're doing okay here, all things considered. I don't really have a whole lot to complain about. It's just there's been some frustrations, and I let that out a little bit. But yeah, that's also part of the reason I wanted to get in and do the live show today, was to talk a little bit, and maybe we'll go into that a little bit more during the after party. Kyle, did you have any other? What?
I was gonna say, yeah, you definitely expressed that you were having a hard time this week, but it's not like you're running your own business in a pandemic with while raising a baby at the same time or anything. So,
yeah,
I wouldn't be hard on yourself.
It's like, I think a lot of people are in a situation where it's easy to not easy, but there's so many people out there who are having a really, really difficult time. Like we're in a position where we're paying our mortgage, we're putting we have food on the table, we're doing okay. My wife is able to work, I'm able to work. My main issue is that I don't really have a whole lot of time to work. So I have ideas for YouTube, I have motivation to get stuff done. I just don't have time. I don't have time to do anything. So that's what it boils down to. We do have some potential changes coming in the next month or so. So hopefully that'll help out and allow me to get a little bit more stuff. We'll get a little bit more stuff done on the YouTubes and whatnot. In the meantime, though, I'm probably just gonna be doing fewer videos, 1 or 2 a week instead of 3 or 4, and we'll deal with that, and we'll go all right. And I really, really do appreciate all you guys' support, whether it's watching the videos in the interim and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I've been hesitant to get too optimistic in the current climate that we're in, I guess. So that's why I'm not getting too optimistic. But there's potentially some reasons to get optimistic if I allow that. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Let's move into the tech news, right?
Sure, let's do it.
I have lower thirds. It's probably things are not lined up properly for that. That's fine.
That's why you're all here, for our amazing, timely tech news.
Yes, timely
super
tech
accurate
news.
reporting.
Only the best tech news. Starting off here with an article from videocards.com, and this is about the NVIDIA RTX 30 series, which is the hot news that we've talked about on several recent shows because it's coming soon. NVIDIA still has that countdown going on, which I believe September 1st is when it's supposed to happen. So that's cool. But this is about the actual physical power connector for these new NVIDIA RTX 30 series cards. There has also been a rumor going on that there would be a new special connector, and apparently this has been confirmed by Seasonic, simply because here's a picture of an actual Seasonic product. This was sourced from the Chinese video sharing website Bilibili, and what you're looking at is a dual 8-pin to single 12-pin power cable connector. Right there. Cable adapter. Who would have thought that a cable adapter could be exciting? But the main thing is that this plug here, the 12-pin, is new, is different than any other power connector on any power supply, and apparently you will need it in order to power your RTX 30 series. And I imagine NVIDIA's just going to ship these cards and leave people hanging with nothing to actually plug them in.
And people will still buy them. They'll still sell out. No.
I'm kidding. Any RTX 30 series card that you buy, and I can't say that I've been told this directly, but I can say this with a fair amount of confidence, will come with an adapter already. This adapter specifically is made for Seasonic power supplies. It's made to plug directly into the power supply, whereas the adapters that will most likely ship in the box with a RTX 30 series graphics card will be one that adapts with your 8-pin or your 6-pin PEG connectors that already come from your power supply. Part of this was leaked earlier in the week via Bilibili, and then there was some inquiries made to Seasonic, and Seasonic said it was just that we're in a testing phase with that connector. But then Hardware Lux actually received one. So here it is. This is the picture from Hardware Lux from Andreas Schilling, who is an editor over at hardwarelux.de. And this is a comparison of your 8 pins to your 12 pins. So maybe if you're looking at that and thinking, why did they bother to do this? Well, it's significantly smaller from this picture. I don't know if there's any forced perspective or angles going on here, but it looks pretty straight on to me. But they're fitting 12 pins in the space, more or less. Maybe it's a little bit narrower vertically, or a little bit shorter vertically and a little bit wider horizontally. But they're fitting 12 pins in the space of where there were 8 before.
I had no idea when I saw that, because I saw that article, when it first came out. I had no idea those pins were that small. I thought it was just the same size pins, just 12 of them. But now it kind of makes sense, because now they're probably going to have, 2 of those on the RTX 3090. And so that might be a little much to have 24 pins, a full-size ATX connector on your GPU. So it makes sense that it's actually shrunken down.
Yeah, I mean, and these cards are potentially expected to have fairly high board power specs and stuff like that. I would expect if NVIDIA is going to the lengths of creating a new 12-pin connector cable, and if they're there's a standard, there's an existing standard for your standard motherboard connector, right? Your 24-pin. And I forget exactly the details of it, but it's like it has to do with the size of these pins and the gauge of the cables and everything like that. So there's a certain amount of amperage that you can feed down a 12 volt, one of these 12 volt pins or whatever. If NVIDIA is establishing a new standard, then they might be able to adjust the amperage per cable, for example, or per wire, I should say. So I would be somewhat surprised to see a double one of these on one of the cards coming out of the gate, but who knows for sure. I would expect that they would create this connector, allowing it to have a lot of headroom for high end cards. So you'd only have to have one of them. But again, like you said, you know, they're fairly small, so you could fit a couple of them on there.
Right. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we'll see, like, you know, single connectors for the Founders Editions and potentially dual pins for some of the aftermarket cards.
Yes, possibly. That could be.
Plausible.
But yeah, there it is. That's our headline. That's our headline article. Power connector. And it's an extension adapter from Seasonic. And again, this is something that's been rumored already for a while, but this seems pretty definitive, given that it's pictures of an actual retail box product by Seasonic, and that Seasonic actually had, you know, provided a response to video cards when they inquired with them about it. So there we go. All right, moving on. This is a slightly older news, but this is a GeForce RTX 3090, maybe, possibly actually pictured. Maybe I should show you guys the thing. This is another videocards.com article, by the way. So there it is. There's the picture of it, and this is very similar to some other leaked pictures that were shown back in like June. This is posted by Garnet Sunset on Twitter. So as with many of the other extremely reputable sources that Kyle and I have shared with you guys in some of the rumors and leaks over the past couple months, random Twitter user is obviously pretty high on that list when it comes to reliability. Garnet Sunset, at least in his defense, I mean, he's got an animated picture there for his picture, but he's not an anime character like who's a cat? Who's the cat? The cat Twitter user who had the other pictures? You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Totally forget the name.
It is shown next to an RTX 2080 though, so you can get kind of a size for comparison thing. There is
triple slot.
There were some people in some of these I was reading through some comments and people were saying like that the connectors look weird and that they seem like it might be scaled differently. That seems like a pretty substantial size difference. So who knows? Who knows for sure? It's triple slot though, as you can see from the PCI Express bracket adapter right there.
Dude, that fan is massive.
And yeah,
and
note that it has two fans, right? So there's a fan on one side that's close to the bracket, if you're looking at it kind of, I guess, from the top here, where you can see all the fins. And then if you flip it over, you can see the PCB, or I guess probably a backplate from the PCB, and there's another fan. So both of these big fat fin stacks have fans up against them, but there's one on the opposite side of the card, and the PCB is this sort of unique shape that looks like it has kind of a V cutout at the end, which we've also kind of talked about with some of the earlier leaks and stuff like that. Like the June leak, for example, had this picture where the framer on the outside was kind of a light blue, which might have been tape, or it might have been, I guess maybe that was like the finishing tape, and then the actual product going around the outside was silver. But anyway, the PCB looks like this. There's also potentially like a processor on one side and a coprocessor on the other, so there's a lot of questions still about the 30 series cards, and especially if you're looking at the higher end ones like maybe the 3080. Like if you have important heat producing processors on both sides of the PCB, what does that mean for water cooling, for example? That was a question asked to me on Twitter. I apologize, I don't remember who asked it to me, but I was like, you're right, that's a good question. You'd either have to have some sort of existing solution to cool the other side of the card, or you'd have to have like a double-sided GPU block or something. So that
hamburger block.
Yeah, hamburger block. That might be kind of interesting to work with. Since we are taking very trustworthy Twitter user Garnet Sunset at his word for this. It's not $2,000. He said $1,400 is what he is his information. The price for the RTX 3090, $1,400. The 3080 would be $800. The 3070 would be $600, and the 3060 would be $400.
Did you say 2,000 for the 3090?
No, the 3090 is $1,400.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Only a small $200 price bump over the extremely reasonable price of the RTX 2080 Ti, which was $1,200. Supposed to be $1,000, but that was a lie. Always have to point out that was a lie. The RTX 2080 Ti original price was a lie. Anyway, though, Kalani, what do you think?
Your wallet better be as big as that card is if you plan to buy one. That's a hefty premium there.
If they're bumping it up from 1,200, then I feel like they must have sold a decent amount of them at 1,200, right?
Yeah, I mean they had no problems selling 2080 Ti's at that price at all, and you never really saw that price go down a whole lot, even a year or two after the card launched. I am still kind of beside myself as to how big it is.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't. I apologize.
I think there is. I think there was something cool about even like the RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition and all the other high-end RTX Founders Edition cards being relatively slim, like just a straight-up 2-slot design that could easily go inside of like an enthusiast small form factor case. Like I've got an RTX 2080 FE and inside of a Dan case A4 right now, and it's like with room to spare, for the power connectors and stuff. It's just kind of a bummer that we won't be able to do fun stuff like that with the FE cards when they launch. I'm guessing that we'll have to look to the board partners to really slim things down, or not. Maybe for a 3090, that's as small as they get, regardless of whether it's from NVIDIA or an AIB. It's just going to be interesting to see how
it does seem to have a lot of cooling fins on it. I mean, they're certainly maximizing the area when it comes to what they're working with there. And they might be taking a cue from a lot of the RTX 2080 Ti designs that were like 2.5 or more than 2-slot designs, where there's 3-slot or a little bit less than that. So a lot of people were okay with that because they're probably working with full-size ATX cases or whatever, and they're not really going to use that space otherwise. But like you said, small form factor applications are going to be, they're still really popular, and I think a niche that a lot of people look to. 2-slot solutions are probably still going to be desirable, so we'll see if third-party vendors are able to design that, and if they're able, if they have to make any compromises in terms of like clock speeds or whatever with that, or overall board power, because it's not just the GPU being cooled, but it's the memory and everything else, and the power delivery. There's still we're still very much in the rumor speculation phase here, and we're hopefully going to hear more in about a week. But Video Cards speculates right now. Their money says that the RTX 3090 or 3080, RTX 3080, no, the 3090, I'm sorry, will have a GA102 GPU with at least 5,248 CUDA cores and 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory, and what we're looking at right here is the Founders Edition, the RTX 3090 Founders Edition. So we'll see what happens next. Stay tuned.
I feel like NVIDIA is just like every generation. NVIDIA gets closer and closer to having their card sort of resemble like a board partner card.
Yeah.
Like first it was just like purely reference. And then they kind of got fancier with it with like the 10 series. It was still blower style, but looked a lot more edgy and more attractive. And they went with the FEs for the 2000 series, which were just full blown like, could have easily been an aftermarket card. Yeah. And now it's like they're huge, and I mean if the rumors are true, and it's just it seems like NVIDIA. I don't know. I wonder how the board partners feel about it, like if it's stealing any sales from them. or if it's NVIDIA's getting too competitive with their own partners. I don't know.
Yeah,
Seems-
I'm sure a lot of them might be irritated in certain ways. I don't know. It's a good question. Good question.
I'm sure
Kyle.
GamersNexus will do a video on it.
Hey,
We'll wait for them to drop the news.
hey, it's a good segue.
Yeah.
Wait, no, it's not. Never mind.
Oh, damn
We're
it.
not- Wait.
Premature,
We're
as
not
usual.
talking about that yet. Sorry, Hero has come over. I'm giving him butt scratches and stuff. He's very happy about that. Oh, I guess that's another thing. Hero was having, like 2 weeks ago, Hero was having some issues. We're pretty sure it was like a spider bite he got on his foot. But he's doing better now. He's still got kind of a scab on his foot, but it got really puffy for a bit. But we got some meds for him and stuff. So Hero's good.
Nice.
Thanks everyone
That's
who
good.
asked about that too. All right, NVIDIA Founders Edition, yada yada. Okay, yeah, let's move on. Corsair is for sale. Who wants to buy Corsair? Everyone, pool your money, and if you have $100 million, you can buy all of Corsair's stock. Probably not. But Corsair has filed for a $100 million IPO, and they intend to trade their company on the NASDAQ under the symbol CRSR. Corsair.
Corsair.
With Corsair. So here it is. Articles over on PCGamer.com, so you can check it out if you want to. It's amazing when you consider where Corsair came from. They were a simple memory manufacturer back in the day, and they've now expanded quite significantly. Not just memory, but wait, what else? What else do they make? Cases. They make cases, of course, cooling products, like all-in-one liquid coolers and stuff, power supplies, storage drives, keyboards, mice, streaming accessories now that they have acquired Elgato, full-blown gaming PCs like the Corsair One. They do many different things. Corsair is one of those companies where you can often do a build, and it's like you can do a full-on Corsair build where like 90% of the parts are Corsair, and then you can also do a build that's completely not Corsair, but somehow still, like, I feel they'll get like one part in there. It's like, oh well, the memory is still Corsair, or the
Right.
power supply is still Corsair, or something like
They're
that.
everywhere.
Yeah, so it's often difficult to do a Corsair-free build. I mean, not like difficult, but they've got their fingers in a lot of pies. Pies is the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Oh, and not only do they do all of those, they make all of those products, they also claim top U.S. market share position in almost all of those categories for all of the things that they make, which is a good position to be in, I suppose, if you're going to do an IPO. Yeah, they're listed.
Their stock's not available yet, correct?
No, I don't think there was a date in the article or anything like that. Yeah, not that I saw. But
Do we know like how much the stock's going to be?
No,
per
this
share?
is the part of the story that I there are probably further details that could be assumed, but like I know some stuff about stocks in the stock market, but I don't really participate in it very much, so I don't know. I don't know how they decide for a $100 million IPO how many actual shares there will be.
Yeah.
Or that kind of thing. There's a lot of, but yeah, an IPO is an initial public offering. For those of you who have no idea, I can at least say that. And in order to be a publicly traded company, you have to meet a bunch of standards, and you have to go through a bunch of like SOX compliance and stuff like that. So there is more oversight over the company, but then it allows you to be public. So you create shares for the company, you sell the shares, the company gets a big cash infusion. Which Corsair is probably looking for right now because they have purchased, other than Elgato, already mentioned, they bought Origin PC and Scuff Gaming within the past few years. So, according to the article, they got some loans in order to fund those acquisitions. The IPO will help pay them back. Last year, or in the past year, Corsair has had $1.3 billion in revenue, with $31.3 million in net profit. And it's also mentioned that they had previously considered going public back in 2012, but decided not to because of market conditions and stuff. There we go.
Cool.
Buy you some Corsair stock. I'd not recommend that, by the way. What, you're gonna buy some?
I'll buy it. I'll just buy a little bit. Just use some fun money.
I know it's one of those like what's the word, like principle based things that isn't discussed very much, but I intentionally don't participate in stocks. Well, I mean, I don't really do much in the stock market in general, but I intentionally don't participate with any tech stocks. That's part of my thing. I should write that down somewhere so that people can be like, oh, look how honest Paul's being with his not buying stocks in the companies that he's reviewing products for and stuff like that. That'd be cool. Yeah, I would consider that a conflict of interest, because if I owned Corsair stock and Corsair did better, then I would make more money, and yada yada. There's lots of potential conflicts of interest in the YouTube space and reviewing and being an influencer and whatever else. But yeah.
Makes sense.
Anyway, you were saying how much stock
I'm
you
definitely
own?
not going to buy any Corsair stock.
Oh, okay.
I've changed my mind. I've had a change of heart.
I thought you were about to
Paul's
divulge all the details of your personal portfolio and stuff.
It's not. It's very small.
Yes.
That's what she said.
I think I have a 401k.
You think you have a 401k?
Shh, never mind.
Probably something you should know if you have or not.
That'll work itself out. All right, Kyle, you made a good segue earlier. I'm going to pretend like you made that just now. That's a good
yes.
You mentioned.
What about GamersNexus?
Speaking of GamersNexus, apart from the fact that they're jerks and they're streaming live right now on top of us, right? GamersNexus literally live streaming right now. Go watch their live stream instead of ours. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Fired.
Watch ours. Ours is fun. Anyway, GamersNexus, they've posted quite a few really good videos over the years. They posted one just yesterday, 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess 3 days ago now. Took off, did pretty well. It's got 530-ish thousand views, and this is I think going to be kind of the updated standard for AIO mounting position. And Steve complains a lot at the beginning of the video about manufacturers with their product images showing GPUs radiators mounted. What just happened? I just jumped back in the video. What the heck's going on? I can't work YouTube right now. It's these damn timestamps that all right. I was trying to make a good case for why people should be watching our live show and not GamersNexus. Anyway.
They're just showing GamersNexus footage.
I know, you're right. Okay, here's the point I'm trying to get at. It's a good video. It's linked in the description if you guys haven't watched it. After we're done with our live stream, maybe consider checking it out. I'm gonna try to do a TLDR here. But Steve's already also bitched a bunch about people trying to do TLDRs who didn't fully comprehend the video and everything like that. So that's something to be watched out for. Here's the main point, Kyle, and the upshot, especially for people like us who make YouTube videos about building computers and radiator positions. You're going to have a bunch of comments on any video you post right now or that you've posted recently saying like, hey, you put the tubes at the top of the radiator, that's wrong and you're stupid. Go watch the GamersNexus video. Because whereas the prevailing, I guess, thought process in the past has often been, if you are positioning a radiator at the front of a case vertically, so that the radiator is vertical, up to down, that if you put the tubes at the top, that will mean that any air bubbles that might be in the radiator will go to the top and be flushed out. That's actually not a good idea. Because where are those air bubbles flushed to? Well, they're flushed into the pump and block right there. So, and that's not good. It's not good for the pump to be cycling air because the pumps that are used in AIOs, they're not meant to pump dry or anything. It also can cause the pump to have to work harder. So it's a bad idea. Steve and crew did a very fun little hack job on an AIO themselves. They cut pieces off of the radiator ends, and then they went and they attached some clear acrylic panels to them so that they could have the radiator in different positions and actually see the liquid inside and see whether there was air collecting in different areas, whether it's on the cold plate or the synthesized cold plate with the see-through piece on it, or whether it was on the radiator itself. So that's the upshot of the whole thing. If you're going to put a radiator vertically at the front of your case, you should put the tubes at the bottom. And they found that this is a cure for very common issues of AIOs making noise. Gurgling sounds can be common at the beginning, like when you first start up, and sometimes those can flush themselves out. But yeah, tubes at the bottom is going to help with potential noise, and it will also help. It will help with the longevity of the pump itself. Just make sure that if you've got a radiator and you've got a pump, like a pump block, that you don't position the pump block above the top of the radiator, because the side of the radiator that doesn't have tubes is actually meant to have some air collect there. So having that at the top allows the air to collect there, because guess what? There's air in the loop. There were a few random things in this video that I was like, I did not know that, and that's really good to know. But Steve got in touch with, as he says, the two major AIO manufacturers, and that's Ace-Tech and Coolit, just to put a more a finer point on it. And they said that their AIOs ship with 2%, according to one AIO manufacturer, and my guess is that's Ace-Tech, or the other one said 10%, and my guess is that that's like a max value, and they're different manufacturers, so they might have different standards for how they're measuring that sort of thing. But 2 to 10% of the volume inside your AIO is air, and if you're positioning it in such a way that that air is being cycled through the pump on a regular basis, it's not good for the pump. It's not good for pump noise. It's not good for cooling. And there's various situations that are like worst case scenarios. Several cases now, Kyle, you've experienced this, like Fantex, right? They have a bracket you can get for the back top of a lot of their cases that lets you slot in a mini ITX board like upside down, right? Yeah. Right. So people do that, and then they put an AIO on it, and they stick the pump block on that, and then they have the radiator positioned down lower in the case. That's a worst case scenario, where you have the pump block vertical, where like the motherboard is hanging upside down, the pump block is on it there, and then the radiator and the tubes are going down somewhere else in the case. That's worst case, because all of the air bubbles are going to collect at the top. They're going to be collecting on the cold plate, so you're going to get really bad cooling, and they're also being pulled through the pump, which is not going to be good for the pump. So there you go.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a good video. I recommend it. Check it out. GamersNexus stream is down. Is that what happened? Is that our fault? I don't know.
Closed him out. Sorry. Did he say anything about like mounting the radiator horizontally, like at the top of the case?
That's the best. That's your best option.
That's the best, right?
Your best option is just to put your rad on the top of your case.
The air is completely out of the picture.
Yeah. That just any air bubbles are going to be in your radiator, and they're going to stay there, and that's where they should be. So that's your best bet. Radiator should be at the top. And yeah, also this is less of an issue for custom loops. Custom loops is just you have to just go back to the hopefully basic custom loop recommendation, which is that your pump always needs to be below your reservoir. So there you go. Anyway, good
stuff from GamersNexus as usual.
Yeah.
I always like seeing when their videos get a ton of views, because they absolutely deserve it. Like there's like a lot of huge even mostly outside of tech, like big channels that just get featured. Like if you look at the trending section, it's just like, why is this garbage on trending? And then I see like someone like GamersNexus who like pours their heart and soul into their content and just, loses sleep constantly, just making really good fucking videos. And it's like, thank God they get some fucking recognition. It's like always so well deserved when their videos take off like that. So it makes me happy.
I agree.
There's still justice in the world.
I agree, Kyle. And I feel like every time they succeed, because like we made friends with Steve early on, like we succeed as well.
Absolutely.
I feel like we, some of that Halo glow, some of it trickles down.
Indeed.
And it's good to feel that. It's good to feel that running over you.
Let it wash over.
All over your face.
Spray it.
All right. Hey, speaking of something that's going to make stuff trickle all over your face.
Yeah, great segue.
RAM and SSD prices will soon plummet due to oversupply and weak demand. Look at that. This story is actually from a week ago, so we would have talked about it last week if we had done the live show. But this is just some good news overall. Article here is from TechSpot, and this is we're looking at a 10% drop through the end of 2020, and a decline that will continue into Q1 2021. That's good to know. Here's your price forecast. Fourth quarter 2020, down 10 to 15%. 2020 sequential, what does that mean? I don't know. It's down. It's down. That's the point. So cool. Oftentimes we bring dire warnings to you guys about like, hey, prices are going to go up for stuff. But especially after having to suffer through some of the crazy DRAM prices of a few years back and like the GPU spikes and whatever, it's like now if we could just get power supplies that are actually in stock regularly and back to normal price, then we could actually build a computer and not have any parts that you feel like, well, that's overpriced, but I guess that's just how the market is right now.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, a couple quotes from the article. The one already from DRAM Exchange. DigiTimes said that the prices of memory chips, including NAND and DRAM, are expected to fall 10% in Q4, with downward trend continuing into the first half of 2021. The reason is that there's too much memory. Everyone just remembers too much. Everyone needs to purge their memory. Manufacturers aren't buying it. Western Digital and Micron, among others, have slowed their purchasing. Another factor is that data centers and other enterprise customers actually stockpiled memory devices at the start of the coronavirus pandemic over fears of a future shortage. This caused an oversupply when that shortage either didn't materialize or was shorter lived than initially anticipated. The average sale price for DRAM and NAND-based products could fall as much as 15% in the coming months, and products that they appear in, derivative products that might have memory in them, like, I don't know, cell phones and stuff like that, could potentially also see price drops as well, which would be super sweet coming up on like the Black Friday and Cyber Monday season, and maybe the end of 2020 will actually not suck. Wouldn't that be cool if the end of 2020 didn't suck? We'd be like, oh my gosh, 2020 sucked. Just sucked so much in so many different ways. But the very, very end of 2020, that was at least okay. That's
I think no matter what happens, the end of 2020 will be awesome because it'll mean the end of 2020
is over. Please.
Finally done.
Please, let's move on. And then 2021's like, ha! Look what I have in store for you. I don't know.
Well, I'm 2020's brother. I'm his child.
The hideous offspring, like or a hybrid creature, like in The Fly or something. Right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I expect 2021 to be like.
Joy.
Okay. All right. Next up, the Pixel 5. We're keeping our ear to the ground when it comes to the Pixel 5 because I want to buy one.
Oh yeah.
Or do I? According to this Ars Technica article, maybe the Pixel 5 sucks.
The twist.
And I really am pulling this article up because I'm very seriously considering a Pixel 5 because I have the original Pixel XL and it really needs to be updated. And this is the phone coming out soonest that seems to be the one that I might be interested in. But all of this news about it in this article is crappy, stupid, sucky news. There's some information from Android Central that says the Pixel 5 will have a 6-inch 90Hz OLED display, a Snapdragon 765G processor, or SoC, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gigabytes of storage. Which is, like, okay, but not fantastic. There's also information in this article from a random person on Reddit. So it should be noted that a random person on Reddit has just about as much, potential trustworthiness as the random people on Twitter who we were trusting to bring us information about the RTX 30 series earlier in the show. So I guess let's just roll with it, right?
Sure.
According to the random Redditor, who also is the one who posted this first actual picture of the Pixel 5, which is the one on the left, and I believe the Pixel 4a 5G is on the right, I think. Could be, I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter, because they say that the body is still made of plastic. Back of the phone is plastic still. With the 4A, which I think is what, a $350 phone, I was like, oh, alright, that's acceptable. Pixel 5, I'm like, no, hell no. I don't want to lower myself to some plastic back phone. Some sort
you got to make it nice and sexy. Make it all steel or
doesn't seem
aluminum.
Right. They also claim, this random Redditor, that the phone has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, which is considerably larger than the Pixel 4's crappy 2,800 milliamp hour battery, but it's also still not that great. It's only on par with like a mid-range cell phone if you're comparing what some of the high-end cell phones have when it comes to battery capacity. Also, the second camera is a wide-angle lens rather than the telephoto lens that the Pixel 4 used, and the main
That's good.
It's good. You prefer the wide angle for the secondary camera? All right, that's okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a
one-up shot.
Yeah, that's a one-up. But the main camera is a 12 megapixel Sony IMX363, and that is the same sensor that they've been using since the Pixel 2.
No.
What?
Why?
No, I want this phone. It's got to have a new camera, not a crappy old camera. To be fair, they've gotten a lot out of this particular camera, but a lot of that is because their software is so good at doing that, and it really at this point feels like something that they've been working with so long that for something like a Pixel 5 launch, you'd expect them maybe to have improved that. So compare that with the fact that it's got the Snapdragon 765G SoC, whereas the Pixel 4 had a Snapdragon 855 SoC. It seems like they're kind of pulling back in different ways. Maybe that's going to be reflected in like a less expensive overall price. I'm not sure. All that said, I was holding out for the Pixel 5 because I thought it would be better, but honestly, everything about the Pixel 4a made me think I should just drop $350 on a Pixel 4a and be done with it. And maybe I'll still end up doing that. We'll see. We'll find out. More on the Pixel 5 as events warrant.
Yeah,
okay.
You got to find out. We still got to see, and hear what cool, funky new features the Pixel 5 has in store.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with every new Pixel launch, there's always some kind of cool, like they have the night mode camera thing at one point. There's always like some nifty feature that, it is either going to be useful or gimmicky depending on what your needs are. And I think there's certain things like I don't see any deal breakers here. Well, none of it is super flashy. Everything you just went over. I don't think there's any deal breakers necessarily. It says that the battery life is okay. It doesn't say it's miserable.
Yeah.
And if it's got a plastic backing, yeah, that does suck if you never put a case on your phone. But if I'm going to buy a flagship phone, that's like $1,000. You bet your ass I'm putting a case on it, at least for the first year. Until I'm like, okay, well, if it breaks now after I've had it for a year, if I need to buy a new one, it's fine. But I usually put a case on it right when I get it. Or, like a lot of people put those fucking D brand skins and shit on it. So it's like you're not going to see it or feel it anyway. And then the wide angle lens is a plus as opposed to the telephoto lens, which was just a stupid idea on the Pixel 4. And if the camera on the front is the same, hardware-wise, maybe they've improved the software considerably, which is always been their strong point. So I don't know, maybe there's still some untapped potential there to squeeze more performance out of that same camera. But I don't know, it could go either way.
Well, I bought my Pixel XL for like $900 when it launched, but now I've used it for 4 years. So I've been spending like $200 ish a year on a phone. So I just want to make sure that whatever I get now, it's got to meet that standard. That standard has been established. And while I completely agree with you when it comes to the plastic back, that yes, It's going to be covered by a cell phone cover. I don't know if you guys can see. I've also still been using the same cell phone cover for there's the nice reflection. I've been using the same cell phone cover for 4 years as well. This I could easily replace and upgrade, but I don't care. And that's all that matters.
Why?
So anyway,
Exactly.
so it's going to be covered. So the aesthetics I don't care about. But if metal means that it's going to have more durability, better rigidity, better protection from impacts and stuff like that, in that case, yes, I would prefer the flagship to have a sturdier housing rather than saving money by going with plastic. But we'll see.
I think we're bending. Yeah.
Yeah, bending for sure. We'll have to see what the price actually is and everything. Hopefully soon. I want a new phone. Okay. One last story here from the news. This is reports about a 4K Nintendo Switch revision slated for 2021. Then there's not a whole lot of detail in this story. There's it's on Ars Technica if you guys want to read it. There's a little bit of speculation about some of the different titles that are already available on the Switch. But yeah, it seemed interesting because I think there's a lot going on with the your Xbox and your PlayStation 5 and your sexy Xbox or whatever it's called. A lot of people are excited about that, but Nintendo, they still have a pretty strong foothold, I'd say, in the market. And I was talking to Kyle a little bit before the show. He has a Switch, and that's something you use more often, right, Kyle, than say like your Xbox when it comes to console, the console options that you might have in your living room.
Yes, I don't use my Switch often, but whenever I have friends come over, we like to smash. Well, that came out wrong. We like to play the game Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yes. On the Nintendo Switch. It's a great console for local co-op and fun party games like that. So I do end up using it a lot more than my Xbox One X.
Fair enough. And I really appreciate. I think, all right, I've appreciated from a distance what Nintendo has been doing for like the past. I guess I've always appreciated Nintendo, but I appreciate what they've been doing in the console wars in the past, say, 10 to 20 years when it comes to Nintendo. They don't care as much about the hardware. They don't care as much about the high resolution or anything like that. It's very gameplay focused. And yes, there's a whole other back and forth argument you could get into with about Nintendo, but I'd say it's a very beloved company by a lot of people, and the Switch has continued that in a lot of ways. So a lot of people might say, who cares about 4K on a small handheld device? But a lot of people, like Kyle mentioned, they plug it into a large screen TV and stuff. So having that capability might be interesting. There's reports referenced in the article from both Bloomberg and the Taipei outlet United News Daily talking about some of these 4K rumors. But specifications are currently in flux. And that's really what the article boils down to. Nintendo is considering upgrades like more computing power and 4K high-definition graphics. Very specific. It's expected to launch in sometime in 2021. That's all we have to say about that. Let's move on. All right.
Thanks for nothing, Nintendo.
Yeah, thanks, Nintendo. I honestly pulled that up, and then I was reading through the article. I was like, there's not a whole lot going on here. It's okay, though. We still talked about it. All right.
Yep.
Excuse me. We have Pimp My PC. Oh, see, Kyle disappeared. Where'd Kyle go?
Oh.
Kyle,
no.
Come back.
Help!
I can still hear you. All right.
So dark, I'm so alone.
You're back. Everything's fine. All right, Pimp My PC, guys. We're going to do a quick little segment here. This is where we take pictures that you guys have sent in. These were all sent over to me on Twitter. This is technically Kyle's segment, but I do it too sometimes. And it's also spawned an entire subgenre of YouTube videos where people critique other people's computer builds completely from a visual aesthetic standpoint. It's really changed the game, I think. All right.
I love it.
Brian Hines, C-Game Dev on Twitter, has a GTX Titan X based system. Let's look at the specs first. This is just his system info thing. An X570i Aorus Pro Wi-Fi motherboard, a Ryzen 5 3600, 32 gigs of RAM. Look at that page file. He has 55 gigs available in his page file. I think that's Sorry. Anyway,
Gee.
here's the build. Damn. Wait, this is a 3600? Is that what?
That's
What?
what it's.
He's a game developer. An X570i with a Ryzen 5 3600 and a
Why is
Titan
there a 30?
and a Titan X. Huh.
There's no way. You
Alright.
only have a 2005 in there.
So look at these pictures. This is a beautiful build. Look at these horizontal parallel runs he's got going for the GPU, the CPU, going across that top radiator there and everything. Is this an in-win case? This is an in-win case, right?
305, I think.
305.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it's one of those cases where I'm like, it doesn't seem that practical where they positioned this top 3 fan mount radiator / whatever thing, but it looks really cool. Like there's a lot of really cool setups I've seen with this.
Why doesn't it look practical? What do you mean?
Because it's like if you've got the case side panel on right here, it's sucking air from the side panel. I mean, I guess you could consider that hot air from the case is going to rise up into that area, or the fan sucking is going to create a vacuum. So that I don't know. I'm sure it works just fine. It's just like it's not exactly where you would consider the fan should be positioned if you want them to actually be blowing air directly over the VRMs on a power delivery or something like that.
I see.
Yeah, that's my only point there. Yes, in-win case. There we go. Anyway, do we have any critiques here? This is just I don't know.
I feel like at this point, with a build like this, you kind of just have to get nitpicky because it's already pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the tubes, like the 2 tubes on top, look pretty sick, but I feel like they could be a little more parallel. I don't know if maybe some offset fittings could help just get those super flush and super plumb.
These look like double rotaries. I bet he could just slightly rotate these, and that would take this lower one and bump it up a little bit, and take the upper one and bump it down a little bit, and make those line up a little bit better.
Yeah,
there might be a little bit of wiggle room there that you could do without having to disassemble the loop or anything like that.
Right.
Obviously, he's working with a distro plate at the front of the case and everything, so that does that dictates where your fittings and connectors are going to go. But using the double rotary fittings from that provides a decent additional amount of flexibility. These 2 runs coming out the CPU, they
off.
I mean they droop a little bit. Looks like it droops, right?
Yeah.
All right, in this picture, actually, I think they look a little bit better. It might have just been that this is one of those pictures taken at a slightly off angle, to it's like MTV or something. Anyway, all right, yeah, I don't have too much to critique to go. Could use some cable combs, I guess, on the sleeved cables. That might be nice. And
it's interesting that his rear fan is an intake.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense because it is right there by the motherboard and everything. It's probably just trying to maintain positive pressure in the case, I guess.
Might get dusty though.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, some cable combs, and then I have built an orange system before, an orange liquid cooled system, where when you had a reservoir or whatever, and you had this orange fluid in there, it looked really cool. And then when the orange fluid went through the tubes, suddenly it looked just kind of weak and not as potent when it comes to the color and everything. I don't know a solution for that. I'm just saying as a visual critique, that's something I'm seeing. Like the reservoir at the front looks nice and orange. Tubing going across just looks a little faded.
Yeah.
But like you said, Kyle, we're trying to be nitpicky here because this is a beautiful build, and we're just looking for stuff to critique. So that's about it. Thank you very much, Brian.
Scrap it. Throw it away.
Upgrade your CPU to like a 3900X. Get a 3900X in there. That's what this system deserves.
It's really the only problem here.
Yeah. That's probably our biggest. That should be the biggest critique on that case. All right.
Yep.
Lexi G. First real build. Took 3 years to get to this point. A little worried about the cooling. Okay, 7700K, overclocked to 4.8. Corsair Vengeance RGB 32 gigs, Z270 Gaming Pro Carbon, RG Strix RTX 2070, 860 EVO, 1 terabyte from Samsung, EVGA Supernova 750 watt, and a deep cool Genome 2 case. Ah, aha. Ooh.
Haven't you used this case before?
I like the lights off and lights on. No, I think I might have covered this at like a CES or something like that, but I don't think I. Oh, I did. I did a pre-roll ad for it. I never actually built in it myself.
It's an interesting case.
It is an interesting case. It's one of those that has like the I/O kind of integrated, and it also pipes the water through the front of the case with like a little helix reservoir, which honestly, if you're trying to get that custom water cool look, and you don't want to pay $1,000 plus for all the stuff you'd need, it's actually a pretty reasonable solution for it.
Right.
That said, I have no idea what the failure rate is for any of like the extra tubing they have that goes through that extra reservoir or anything like that. So that said, assuming everything's fine with that, we're mainly going to critique your cable management and the fact that you've got that in-between power supply. You've got that in-between EVGA power supply. It's a really good one. Supernova 750 G2, solid power supply. It's also one that has black cables, but they're kind of on the ugly side for black cables because they've got these big fat heat shrink wraps right above the 24 pin and the 2 peg connectors as well.
Right.
So it makes it hard to angle those right there, and it also just doesn't look that great. So this build, I'd say, since overall it's got a pretty high-end hardware and everything like that, could benefit absolutely from some cable extensions, perhaps, to make the visible parts of that a little bit cleaner. What else? Anything else?
I feel like the back fan would be better if it was matching one of the AIO fans, just to sort of make it more uniform.
The white blades?
Yeah, some white blades would be good. If you could get one of those same deep cool fans, I think that'd be nice. I don't know. It's a weird case because that front sort of cable wire grill that's there at a 45-degree angle, like, kind of shows all the cables after you route them through the grommet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a way to hide those better. Maybe if you got, so building on what Paul's suggestion was of getting extensions, maybe if you got white extensions because it's a white case, those might blend in better with the background of, an existing white motherboard tray, so that it wouldn't be so obvious, because it kind of looks like we're seeing behind the curtain right now when we really shouldn't be.
Yeah. The third or fourth picture, you can see the opposite view, and like, I don't know, like the design of this case is such that there is a big old space up there where you feel like, oh, if they had sort of enclosed that, you could route cables through it, no problem. However, it's also where like the front intake is, so I'm sure they kept that wide open like that just for airflow purposes.
Right.
But yeah, it does kind of make it so you can't treat it as much as like a hidden cable management area. You have to be a little bit more thoughtful about what you're doing back there. But yeah, that's it. And then everything else is looking really nice. I mean, yeah, good choice of components and everything.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Lexi.
Thank you, Lexi. Next we have Alex Helms. We got a first-gen Ryzen build here with the Ryzen 7 1700X and RX 5700 XT RAW 2 graphics card, a Gigabyte AB350N gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, and a Fantex Eclipse P300A case. We have a single picture. Look at that. What do you think there?
I think you, Alex, I think you did the P300A dirty. I think you did it real dirty.
A little bit.
I think for being a budget case, for being as cheap as this case is, it really gets a lot of marks in my book for actually having pretty good cable management. And you didn't seem to really utilize any of those cable management features here. I think everything seems sort of haphazardly run and strung together.
Is that a mini ITX motherboard? Is that right?
Yeah, I think there's only 2 DIMM slots, so I think you're right. And
Yeah.
well, and also it's look at it compared to the length of the GPU. It's definitely mini ITX.
AB350N gaming Wi-Fi, yes, is a mini ITX motherboard. So part
Yeah.
of what we're dealing with here is a mini ITX motherboard. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not filling out the space for one, so you have a bunch of cables that you're routing across just bare back plate from your motherboard tray or whatever. And the motherboard has an edge light going along the right edge beneath the memory, so it's like lighting that up. Like, hey, look at all these loose cables going across here. Aren't those super visible? You've got a red and a yellow SATA cable. Like SATA cables you can buy for like 75 cents on Amazon. Like buy some black SATA cables. That's easy enough. We got
No, like you should have had some black ones included with that motherboard.
You're right. You're right. I think
Where are they?
I'm pretty sure I have that motherboard. Like I've used that motherboard, and it should have come with black SATA cables. So why'd you do
They
that?
all do, yeah. Ketchup
So
and mustard. To match the ketchup and mustard cables.
that's
of this
also why the
ATX.
USB 3.0 cable is on such a grand swoop, coming from the front of the case, going all the way to the left of the CPU cooler and up to the top left of the motherboard, which is just a horrible location for that connector. And I think that's the supplemental PCI or CPU power that's also kind of right in the middle, which is why I think he ran a cable. He did manage to run it behind the graphics card, so I guess that's gotta give him props for that. But
Is that a USB 3 cable that's in the top left corner of the motherboard that's
Yeah.
going looping around?
yeah, that's what I was just saying. That's that grand
Oh,
swooping
okay.
USB 3.0, which is in just a horrible location. Which is why, if you have a full-size ATX case, why are you using a mini ATX motherboard? Just fix it. The final just baffling thing about this build, though, is the custom paint job on the cooler, right? Right?
Yeah.
That's custom.
Yeah. Right. Oh, it's totally custom.
Like
yeah.
he took an AMD Wraith cooler
Not in a good way.
and popped the
Spray
plastic
painted it.
off and spray painted it red.
Looks like it was plasti dipped or something.
When nothing else in the system is red except for that SATA cable, which isn't even the same color red.
Maybe he likes the ketchup and mustard theme. Maybe that's what he was going for. He absolutely nailed it in his book, in his eyes.
So maybe that was the intent. I don't know. But all right,
Here's my thought. Here's my thought is that he already had this is kind of a Frankenstein build. A lot of these parts were existing in a different build entirely. He at one point maybe had a mini ITX build using this B350 motherboard that is, several generations old now.
Yeah.
And maybe he decided that he was going to upgrade, that system and maybe take it to an ATX level. And so maybe he bought the ATX case, but wasn't really ready to buy the other components like an ATX motherboard or better cables. And so he just kind of ported it into this larger case temporarily until he's ready to save up for all these other elements that he can then populate the case with and maybe have a more complete system. Just a theory of to explain the oddity of this whole thing,
It's a very generous theory that's obviously giving him the benefit of every doubt possible. But before we move on, I also just wanted to point out that this system appears to be sitting on a concrete floor with loose insulation bundled up behind it, and I'm not sure what the deal is with all that. So baffling overall build, but thank you very much, Alex, for sending that over. Our next build is from Sean, the Sean1234. He has an old school system with an AMD Phenom 2 X6 6-core processor, the 1090T, at 3.2 gigahertz. I'm sorry. Originally ships at 3.2 gigahertz. He has overclocked it to 3.8. 16 gigs of GDR3 1800. A Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, the classic, which is very clearly a lie because that's not the cooler.
Not it at all.
The MSI Gaming 970 ATX motherboard, GTX 970 Gaming 4G, and a Corsair CX650M 80 plus bronze. Why is he lying about his CPU cooler? What's the deal with that?
Maybe these are old pictures and he's since upgraded to a Hyper 212.
I don't know.
I keep giving these viewers benefit of the doubt.
You're being very kind. You're being very kind.
Being very kind.
Like when we do
I'm
Pimp My
I'm
PC,
very kind when I'm not roasting PCs.
when we do Pimp My PC on my channel, Kyle's just all about the making excuses for people. But all right, so here we have a system where it's like, wow, what did computers look like 10 years ago? And this is a pretty accurate, like, look at it.
That raw interior,
That
power
MSI,
supply at top.
that MSI 970 is actually a pretty good card.
Yeah.
Wait, what was this?
3.5 out of 10.
Your Phenom 2 is holding you back big time. The 1090Ti, oh my gosh, that's such an underpower. The CPU sucks in many ways.
Replace everything.
Yeah.
I think is it's time for an upgrade. At this point, it is time for a full-blown, not even an upgrade, a replacement.
The CX650M power supply you could carry over to a new build, and you would probably want to get some extensions if you didn't want to be if you want to get dinged for your ketchup and mustard cables.
Mm-hmm.
Your graphics card, I would also say it's not a great option. But the GTX 970 is still adequate, and it would be a decent decent transition card if you wanted to invest in something like a Ryzen 3600. And you needed a graphics card for it, but you didn't necessarily want to drop $200 or $300 on something reasonable from current generation. So
right.
Those are the suggestions. Other than that, I mean, you got a case with an unpainted interior. That's always going to stand out and make everything look very old. And you got random wires hanging around. There's not much to be done about all that. You're looking at an upgrade of many core components here if you want to step things up. But yeah. Your graphics card, your power supply, totally viable for carryover parts to help ease the transition into your next build. Okay. What's up? Crackling Ice with one more submission. This is a 6800K base system at 4.2 gigahertz. With a Hyper 212, did he lie? No, that's not a lie.
We got an honest Abe here.
This is not a lying person about the Hyper 212 with an extra LED fan. RTX 2080 Founders Edition ASRock X99 Tai Chi, 48 gigs of RAM, 400 megahertz, 500 gig SSD, 3 terabyte hard drive, an AOC 144 hertz FreeSync G-Sync monitor, and an EVGA Z10 keyboard. All right. Ooh. Okay.
What case is this?
An is that an AZA?
It's a bad case.
It's a bad case. Is that a Senti? Is it a Sente?
Senti case?
Senti case?
Whatever it is, it looks pretty restrictive for airflow. And you've got some pretty high-end components in here, like an RTX 2080. So I think your case is your weakest link.
He has a direct 120 millimeter fan piping air onto that graphics card, though, Kyle. So maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. I will say,
looks bad.
If there's something that's lost these days from the tempered glass side panel trend that I totally started, it's that you don't get these cases now that have a fan just on the side panel. Those are always awkward and inconvenient because anytime you had to take the side panel off, you have to like unplug the fan and stuff like that. But honestly, if you want direct airflow over a hot graphics card or an SLI configuration, there really wasn't much better way to do it. So just in defense of this build, I guess, saying that. Is there a signature or something down on his motherboard? What does that say?
Signature.
Right?
Yeah, it looks like he did.
In the first picture?
Sign it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, what does that say?
It's an interesting choice.
Addendum?
Yeah.
Addendum.
All right. Cable management overall is actually pretty decent considering what you're working with and the fact that you don't have a whole lot of space to hide stuff. I'd say you did a pretty solid job with that. There's still some cables that are very visible because they are like white and red and other colors. That's just part of the case. And apart from the bottom, I think those are front panel connectors, which are kind of look a little loose and jangly. Everything else you did a pretty decent job with. It's just you're working with components that very obviously look like they're 10-year-old budget pieces, like your case. and the fan and stuff like that. And yeah, oh, Kyle, you're pouring yourself some more alcohol.
The bitter end of it.
Yes.
All gone.
So get a new case, and that would be nice, I think, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Your core components are getting a little outdated. They're not horrible by any stretch. A 6800K and everything, a little on the older side. I'm about to upgrade my X99 system personally, but still is going to get you by just fine.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said so far, Paul. I do think that a simple case change would completely
get a new case and then
change the build for the better.
And then take all of the plastic pieces off of your motherboard and spray paint them silver to match your graphics card and the Cooler Master Hyper G12, and then everything would be perfect, I think, right?
You mentioned the CPU cooler probably needs to be changed, right?
I didn't say that specifically. I mean, that's something that could be done. I think the case stands out a lot more aesthetically, but the Hyper 212 is always one of those love-hate things where it's a great bang for the buck, but it also doesn't look that great. So yeah, upgrading that to an all-black air cooler or something, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, that's all for Pimp My PC. Thank you all so much. That is also all for Awesome Hardware, at least on the YouTube side. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And if you want to read more about any of the stories we talked about, there should be links down in this video's description. We're going to be continuing on Twitch for a few more minutes, so if you're watching on Twitch, stay right where you are. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to twitch.tv/awesomehardware if you want to hang out with us for a few more minutes. That's all. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.